Hi everyone, welcome back to Sheetly Studio. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to use our wedding planner template. For this demonstration, I'll be using Google Sheets, but if you are using the Excel version, don't worry. Everything works exactly the same way. Before we dive in, there's one important rule to keep in mind. You should only enter data into the white, blank cells or those with drop-down menus. Please avoid editing any of the colored cells, as they contain formulas and formatting. Modifying them might break the automatic calculations. To start off, let's look at the basic details. First, we have the groom's name section. The top cell here is for the first name, and the cell right below it is for the last name. Right next to it, you'll find the bride's name section, which works the exact same way. First name on top and last name below. Right next to that, we have the wedding date section. If you are using the Google Sheets version, simply double-click on the cell to open the calendar pop-up and then select your wedding date. For the Excel version, you'll need to type the date in manually using the day-month-year format. Moving on, the next section is for your wedding venue. And right next to that is the currency setting, where you can select the currency you will be using for your wedding budget. Let's look at the next table, starting with vendor categories. As I mentioned earlier, please do not edit these colored cells because this data is linked to multiple other tabs in the spreadsheet. Instead, use the white cells to list your custom vendor categories. I've already pre-filled some common categories for you, but feel free to delete them or add your own in any of the blank white cells. Just to give you a quick heads up, this vendor category list will automatically link to the Vendors Comparison tab. Still on the same page, let's move on to the Guest Tag table. This section is used to categorize your invited guests, such as family, friends, or VIPs, and this list will directly connect to the Guest List tab. Next, let's look at the Role list. This list will connect directly to the Wedding Party tab. Over here, we have the Music Genre list, which connects to the Music Playlist tab. Right below, you'll find the Accommodation list, and next to it, the Meal Preference list. Both of these will link to the Guest List tab. Lastly, right beside that is the Registry Category list, which is connected to the Registry Planning tab. As you can see on the left, there is a navigation menu with links to help you jump to any tab you want. For example, since the Role table is connected to the Wedding Party tab, I can just click on Wedding Party and then click the pop-up link. And just like that, we've moved to the Wedding Party tab. Now, if you look at the Role column, you'll see that the drop-down options here are pulled directly from the list we set up earlier. All right, let's head back to the Setup tab. If you prefer to hide this side navigation menu to get more screen space, just select columns A through C, right-click, and choose Hide Columns AC. Whenever you want to bring it back, simply click on the small arrow icon at the top, and the navigation menu will reappear instantly. Now, let's head over to the Moodboard tab. Right here is the photo section for your mood board. To add a photo, you can copy the image address of any picture you find online, from Pinterest, for example. Once you've copied the image address, simply go to the cell next to Image Link and press Ctrl+Shift+V to paste it. The image will automatically appear. If a permission prompt pops up, just click Allow Access or Enable Content to load the photo. However, if you want to upload a photo from your local storage, first click on the cell where you want the image to appear. Then, go to the top menu, click Insert, select Image, and choose Insert Image in Cell. After that, click on Upload, hit Browse, and simply select the image you want to display. Just a quick note, if you choose to upload an image from your local storage, it will automatically overwrite and remove the formula in that cell. And right up here at the top, you can adjust the image size for all the photos on this Moodboard tab. For example, let's switch it to fit size. And here is what it looks like. Now, I'm going to change it back to the original size. Let's scroll down a bit. This section is for your Moodboard materials, where you can define your color palette, vibe and mood, dress styles, and florals. And if you scroll down even further, you'll find more sections to save all your wedding inspiration and references. All right, let's move on to the Task Tracker tab. To start, The table below is where you will enter all your task details. As an example, to add a task, I will first type Set Wedding Budget in the task column. Then, move to the phase column, which has drop-down options ranging from 12 months before to post-wedding. For this task, I will select 12 months before. And for the deadline, let's select July 10th. As you can see, the days left column will update automatically and format itself if the deadline is already past due. For the assignee column, you can choose from bride, groom, or both. If I select both here, the assignee chart will automatically update to reflect this. Then, for the priority, I will choose Very High. Once your task is completed, simply click the checkbox in the Done column, and the charts above will automatically update to show your progress. You can also filter your progress chart by selecting a specific task phase. For example, if I choose 12 months before here, you can see that 4 out of your 6 tasks are already completed. Let's try selecting 6 to 12 months before, which shows that 3 out of 7 total tasks are completed. Now I'll set this back to all. Up here, you can see the overall summary of all your tasks, including the number of remaining tasks you still need to finish. Alright, let's move on to the Itinerary tab. This tab is where you can plan and organize the timeline for your wedding day events. And in this cell here, you can enter the title of your itinerary. The cell right below it is for the date. To select the date, just double-click on the cell, and for the Excel version, you will need to type it in manually. For the table columns, we have time, event, person in charge, and details. The adjacent table works the same way, labeled the wedding day with its date, and below that is where you organize the itinerary details. And this tab comes with 4 pre-made tables for your itineraries. Alright, let's move on to the Packing List tab. This tab features 4 different tables, and I'll use the 4th table as an example to show you how it works. For example, I will type Title Example for the table title. In the list below, we have the item column where I'll enter example item, and for the quantity column, I'll put 1. For a second example, I will add example item 2 under the item column, and the quantity is 2. Next, let's move to the owner column. In this column, there is a drop-down list containing Oliver for the groom, Charlotte for the bride, and both. If I select Oliver, you'll see that Oliver's total count immediately increases. And for item 2, let's select both. If you choose both, the total counts for both Oliver and Charlotte will automatically increase. So if you want each person's total to increase by exactly 1, make sure to enter 1 in the quantity column, and it will add 1 item to each person's count. For example, if I check the Done box for item 1, you can see that the packed column for Oliver increases by 1, and the overall progress bar updates to 50%. And this progress chart shows the overall progress of all packed items. For example, if I check the Done box for item 2 as well, the progress bar will reach 100%. Now let's look at the top section. This area shows the combined progress of all items from the 4 packing list tables below. Right. Let's move on to the Vendors Comparison tab. This tab features several tables to help you select and compare different vendors based on their pricing and package details. Before we begin, just a quick reminder as mentioned earlier. You should only edit or select data in the cells that have a drop-down menu. And this is the vendor category list, which is pulled directly from the list we created in the Setup tab earlier. If you scroll down, you will see that there are 20 comparison tables available on this tab. I'll fill in one of the empty tables as an example. Let's select Cake/Bakery from the drop-down. Inside this table, we have columns for name, contact number, email, website, package details, contract price, and notes. Once you have selected your vendors, the data will automatically link to the Wedding Budget tab. I will show you how this works once we move over to that tab. Alright, let's move on to the Venue Options tab. First, let's look at the venue image section. You can use an image from Pinterest or the internet by copying its image address and pressing Ctrl+Shift+V in the white cell next to image link. Alternatively, you can upload an image from your local storage, just like I showed you on the Moodboard tab. On the left side, you can adjust the image size of your venue photos to your liking. For example, if I select Fit Size, all images will scale to fill their cells. Now, I will change it back to the original size. Let's scroll down. As you can see on the left, these labels are here to guide you so you can align your information correctly. For example, this row is for the venue's name, and this row is for the contact. As you can see, this is the name row, so you would enter the venue's name here. Below that, we have rows for contact, email, website, location, and guest capacity. There is also a rating row where you can assign a star rating based on your personal review of their services and overall pricing. Once evaluated, you can rate each venue right here. Looking at the bottom rows, there is an option to mark whether the venue is available on your wedding date, followed by the total cost of their services. On the far left, you will also find a Cost Tips and Questions section. In these columns, you can list each service or item along with its cost, and the total will be automatically calculated at the bottom. At the very bottom, there is a Pros and Cons section, which can also help you determine your star rating. Now, let's go back to the top section. Here, you'll find a checkbox to select your final venue. For example, if I check the box for Venue 4, the entire table will automatically turn green. Once selected, your chosen venue will automatically be added to the vendors list on the Wedding Budget tab. Just a quick reminder, you can only select one out of the 5 venues on this tab, and this is intended for your main wedding venue. If you need to book additional venues for other events, I recommend adding them through the Vendors Comparison tab instead. Now let's move on to the Food and Drinks tab. As you can see, there is an image placeholder here, and you can easily add your own image by pasting the image address into the cell next to image link. And in this Selection Options section, it will automatically display the final choice you select from each of the category tables below. Now let's look at this caterer table. Here, we have a drop-down menu where you can select the name of the caterer you previously chose in the Vendors Comparison tab. This table is linked to the vendor category list on the Setup tab, which should not be modified. In this drop-down, you can select your chosen bartender vendor, and the details below will be filled in automatically. And you can refer to this section on the side to customize your data accordingly. Let's scroll down. Here, we have the appetizer category tables, which allow you to compare your options and select your favorite simply by checking the box next to your choice. Each table includes columns for option, quantity, and amount, with the total calculated automatically for each selection. For example, if we have mini crabs with a quantity of 120 and a unit price of $5, the total cost will be calculated right here. And here is a chart that compares the total costs of each option within the category. As you can see, it displays the total prices for appetizer tables 1 and 2 and 3 for easy comparison. For example, if I select appetizer table 1 by checking the box, our cost breakdown chart will automatically update to reflect the price of your chosen appetizer. Let's scroll down further. As you can see, there are 6 categories in total, and selecting your preferred option in each will automatically update and display it in the summary section at the very top. The selection option table here will be filled in automatically. For example, for appetizers, it displays mini crabs with a quantity of 120. Above this, you can view the total cost and total quantity for your chosen appetizers. The same automated updates apply to salads, main courses, and all other categories. And right over here, you can see the guests attending count, which is automatically linked to your guest list tab. The total catering cost displays the combined total of all the food and drink categories you selected from the tables below. Alright, now let's move on to the Wedding Budget tab. First, let's look at the Wedding Fund Contribution table. For example, I will enter another savings in the contributor column. Before entering the amount, notice that the left to spend is currently at $54,000. If I enter $1,000 in the amount column, you will see the left to spend automatically increases by $1,000. Now let's move on to the expense summary table, which consists of the category and budget columns. Please do not edit or delete any of the colored cells, as doing so might break the formulas. Now let's look at the vendor's summary table. The colored cells in this table are locked because the data is automatically pulled from the venue options and vendors comparison tabs we set up earlier. However, you will need to enter the contract price manually, as there might be discounts after finalizing the deal with your vendor. Next to it, you'll find the total paid and last payment columns, which are linked to the payment log table. Next to that is the progress column, where you can select difference from the drop-down menu to see your remaining balance or outstanding payment due to the vendor. As you can see, with a contract price of $9,600 and a total paid of $1,500, you can easily view your remaining balance, which is calculated as the contract price minus the total amount paid. Now, I will change this back to progress. You can also switch the expense summary table to show either progress or difference, depending on your preference. All right, let's scroll down. I'm going to update the total paid for the Magnolia Oak Farm venue. First, I will uncheck the box in the paid column, along with all the other columns in the payment log. The paid column is used to check off whether an expense category has been paid, and the paid date column is where you enter the payment date. Next is the type column, which allows you to categorize the payment as either an expense or a vendor, based on the two tables above. For example, if I select expense here, the drop-down list in the category/name column will automatically display options from your expense category list. And if I select vendor, the drop-down list in the category/name column will automatically switch to show the category and name from your vendor's table. For example, the venue category with Magnolia Oak Farm. If I leave the type column blank, the drop-down list in the category/name column will also be empty. So, please make sure to fill out the type column first. As an example, I will select vendor in the type column and choose venue Magnolia Oak Farm. For the category/name, the upcoming payment table above will automatically display any category that has a due date. Let me explain this quickly. I'll enter an amount of $5,000, and for the paid by column, I'll select bride's parents from the drop-down, which pulls from the wedding fund contribution table. Next, if I set the due date to July 6th, Magnolia Oak Farm will immediately appear in the upcoming payment table. Now let's scroll up to the vendor's table. As you can see, the total paid and last payment columns are still showing 0. I will enter a paid date, for example, July 5th. Note that the last payment is still blank at this point. Once you check the box in the paid column, the entry will disappear from the upcoming payment table. Consequently, the total paid in the vendor's table will increase to $5,000. The progress bar will go up, and your last payment date will now display as July 5th. Now, let's look back at the upcoming payment table. If you notice any overdue payments, you can easily find them. Simply click on the category you want to edit and click the pop-up link that appears. This will automatically jump to the specific row in the payment log where that due date is located. You can also filter your transactions here. For example, if you want to view payments made within a specific date range, I can set the filter from July 1st to July 10th. This will display only the payments made within that period, showing the type, category, and amount paid for each. If you want to view the details of a specific transaction, simply click on the category. This will automatically jump to that exact row in the payment log, saving you from having to search through them one by one. All right, let's scroll back to the top. Here, you can view the left to spend chart, which includes a drop-down menu. You can switch this to display either left to spend or left to budget. If I select left to budget, the chart will update accordingly. Additionally, you can see your budget overview here, which displays my total budget for both the expenses and vendors tables. As you can see, the chart on the left shows your progress, while the chart on the right displays the totals for each category. This allows you to easily identify which categories have the highest spending. And up here, you can see the summary of your total contributions, overall budget, and actual spending. Right next to it is today's date and the countdown of days left until your wedding day. All right, let's move on to the Calendar tab. Everything on this tab is fully automated. You only need to set up your calendar settings in this small table here. Here, you can select the year, such as 2026. And right below it, the month, which we will set to July. For the start day, you can choose Monday, Sunday, or any other day. I will select Sunday for this example. Finally, there is a Show option where you can filter by all, complete, or incomplete tasks. Below that, you can choose your calendar source to customize what displays on your calendar. For example, I will check the box for wedding budget and also other deadlines. These other deadlines are pulled from the table shown right below. For instance, if I choose to display only other deadlines, you can see a task scheduled for July 12th. If I check the box in the Done column, that task will automatically be marked with a check mark on the calendar. Now, I will check all the calendar sources again. If you want to filter your tasks without searching for them individually, you can change the Show option to Incomplete, for example. As you can see, there are now several incomplete tasks or payments shown on the calendar. For example, we have an incomplete task on July 12th. Each task or payment is color-coded based on its Source tab, matching the colors shown in the calendar source settings. Green represents the Task Tracker tab, dark brown is for the Wedding Budget tab, and light brown is for other deadlines. If I click on the Draft Guest List task, it will automatically take you to that exact row in the Task Tracker tab. The same goes for the Wedding Budget payments. If I click on a payment here, it will automatically jump to that specific payment category and date in the Budget tab. Let me show you another example with other deadlines. If I click on that task, it will automatically take you to its corresponding row. If I mark it as done, the task will automatically disappear from the calendar. If you want to display all tasks on the calendar again, simply change the Show option back to All. And up here, you can see the overall summary of all information for July 2026. All right, let's move on to the Vendors List tab. Everything on this tab is fully automated and designed to give you a clear overview of all your vendors. This includes details from both your venue options and vendors comparison tabs. Here, you will find columns for name, category, contact, email, website, package details, and contract price. For the venue's package details, it also includes information about the location and guest capacity. Now let's look at the table on the left, where you can see each category along with the total number of vendors selected for each. And up here, you can see a chart representing each of your vendor categories. All right, now let's move on to the Guest List tab. First, let me explain the table below. This table contains your guest details, which includes columns for guest name, guest tag, guest of, and guest priority. As you can see, this is the guest name, and right next to it is the guest tag. The options in this drop-down list are pulled directly from the guest tags we set up in the Setup tab earlier. You can also filter the data in your guest list. I'll click on the filter icon. Select Clear, and then check only bride's family and bride's friends before clicking OK. Now, the guest list will automatically display only the guests with those specific tags. Now I'll reset the filter by clicking the filter icon, choosing Select All, and clicking OK. Let's move to Guest of, where you can choose between bride, groom, or both. For guest priority, the drop-down offers options for Must Invite, Nice to Invite, and If Space Allows. Next to that, we have columns for Save the Date and Invitation. Up here, you can see the progress charts for both. For example, if I change one guest's status to Sent in the Save the Date column, the chart will update automatically. And if I change the status to Sent in the Invitations column, the Invitations chart will also update automatically. Now for the RSVP status column, if a guest replies that they are attending, you will see the total attending count in the top summary section update immediately. But before that, you must fill in the total attending column. As you can see, the total invited here is estimated at 4, but only 2 of them are actually able to attend. Once you enter this, the guest tags chart will automatically update, and the total attending count at the very top will increase. I'll scroll to the side so we can look at the RSVP status options, which include attending, waiting, and declined. Just a quick reminder, once you update the RSVP status to attending, don't forget to fill in the total attending column so that the formulas can accurately calculate the total attendance at the top of the sheet. Now, looking at the accommodation column, you will find a drop-down list pulled from the accommodation settings in the Setup tab. Next, we have the full address, phone number, and email address columns. Beside those is the meal preference column, which also gets its drop-down options from the Setup tab. And right next to it is the food accommodation column, where you can track whether any of your guests have allergies or other dietary requirements. All right, I'll scroll back to the left to explain the charts and the summary information at the top. This chart tracks the guest tags for all your guests, displaying both the total invited and total attending for each specific tag. And up here, you can also filter the summary by guest of. For example, if I change this from all to bride, you will see the updated counts for total invited, total attending, total waiting, and total declined for her guests. For example, if I want to view the details for the groom's guests, here are the results. Now, I will change it back to both. All right, I will reset everything. Now, let's scroll to the right again, where you can see the charts for RSVP status and meal breakdown. In the RSVP status chart, you can see that 53 guests have RSVP'd as attending, 27 are waiting, and 13 have declined. All right, now let's move on to the seating plan tab. As you can see, this is what it looks like, and I'll explain each part to you one by one. First of all, this section is used to assign seats for the guests who are marked as attending on your guest list. And up here, we have a chart for each table below, showing both the seats occupied and the seat capacity. As an example, let's look at Table 1. First, if I set the seat capacity to 10, you can see that the chart above automatically updates. Now let's quickly jump to the table on the far right, the unassigned guests list. Above this table, you can filter the guests by their tags. For example, if I select Bride's Family. Now, I will assign those guests to Table 1. For example, let's add Mr. Brooks, followed by Mr. Hughes, then Brooke Extended, and next, Thomas Brooks and Guest. As you can see, we now have 10 total guests assigned to this table, and the chart above clearly shows how many seats are currently occupied. If you want to view the complete list of all unassigned guests again, simply clear the data from the Filter by Tags cell. And in the Confirmed Guests table on the far left, you can sort your list by either table or name. For example, let's switch this to name. If I accidentally assign Benjamin Morris to Table 1 again, you will see that his name automatically gets highlighted. As you can see, this guest has already been assigned to Table 5. Whenever you see a duplicate highlight like this, I recommend deleting the duplicate and placing them at the single table you want. All right, in the top left section, you can see the total number of guests seated along with your overall seating progress. If you want a guest to appear in the drop-down list on the seating tables, go to the Guest List tab and make sure their RSVP status is set to attending. For example, for the guest James Brooks, I will change his RSVP status to attending and set his total attending count to 1. Now, when I go back to the seating plan, James Brooks will automatically appear in the drop-down list. If I select his name, he will be added to the confirmed guest list. Let's look at the summary information at the very top, which shows the total seats, seats occupied, seats available, and those still waiting to be seated. All right, now let's move on to the Wedding Party tab. On this tab, you'll find tables for both the bridesmaids and groomsmen. Each table includes columns for name, role, aisle order, paired with attire, attire status, appointed, and notes. The same structure applies to the other tables as well. For the role column, The drop-down options are pulled from the role list we created in the Setup tab. The groomsmen table works the exact same way, utilizing those same roles from the Setup tab. All right, let's move on to the Contacts tab. This tab features the Family and Friends contact table, which includes columns for name, relationship, contact number, email, full address, and other details. And below that is the Vendors table for the vendors you have selected. Everything in this table is fully automated, pulling the details directly from the vendors you chose in the Vendors Comparison and Venue Options tabs. All right, now let's move on to the Day of Timeline tab. First, you'll need to set up your timeline. For the start time, you can see that the start time here is currently set to 7 a.m. So, before you start filling in your description column, go to the Timeline Setup first to configure the timeline for each table. For example, if I change the start day time to 8 a.m., the start times for all tables will automatically update to match your new settings. However, since I have already filled in the descriptions and set the timeline to 7 a.m., I should change it back to the original start time of 7 a.m. so it doesn't disrupt the schedule you've already planned. And as for the title of each table, you can actually edit them even though the cells are colored. For example, I can change the title ext here to another. Let me show you an example in the description column. First, I will merge the cells from 8 a.m. to 8:30 a.m., and then I will type example description. For the second schedule, let's say from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., I will select those cells and click the Merge Cells icon in the Google Sheets menu. Once merged, you can enter your description. For example, I'll type example 2. As you can see, the different schedules will automatically be highlighted in distinct colors. Now, if I enter another description at 10:30 a.m. and type description 3. Now, let's move to the adjacent table. For example, from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., select those cells and click Merge Cells. Let's enter description here. If you scroll to the right, you'll see there is one more table available. It looks like there is one more setting I haven't mentioned yet. In the Timeline Setup under Jump Time, you can choose your time intervals, 15 minutes, 30 minutes, or 1 hour. For example, if I change this to 30 minutes, since I already entered descriptions based on a 15-minute interval, you'll see that some of the descriptions will no longer align correctly with the times. And the same thing happens if I change the interval to 1 hour. So, I will change the jump time back to 15 minutes to keep the schedule properly organized. All right, now let's move on to the Gifts and Thank You tab. As you can see in the table below, the colored columns are fully automated, and the guest list is pulled directly from the Guest List tab. Next to it is the Gift Category column, where you can choose between gift, cash, or none. If you select cash, you can enter the amount in the cash amount column, and if you choose gift, you can specify the item in the gift type column. For the status column, you can select from the drop-down options: keep, refund, exchange, donate, or sell. Next, the full address column is automatically filled in for you. Beside that is the thank you column to track whether your thank you notes have been sent. For example, if I check the box here, the thank you sent chart at the top will update automatically. If we look at the top left summary, you can see your total guests, along with the total gifts received and total cash received. I will scroll to the side where you can find the gifts and thank you filter. First, I will clear all active filters. In this table below, you can filter your view by selecting specific gift categories, such as gift or cash. You can also filter the list by thank you note status. For example, I can display only those that are not sent, or switch it to show the ones that have been sent. For the gift status filter, you can easily check which gifts you marked as keep or donate. To reset these, simply clear the cells. Below that, you can filter by cash amounts. For example, if I set the minimum to 500, it will display the cash gifts of 500 or more. If I change the minimum to 200 and the maximum to 300, it will show results within that range. Now, I will reset everything back to the original settings. All right, now let's move on to the Shoot List tab. This table is where you can list all the photo and video shots you want to capture. Here we have the photo category column, followed by the shot description, location, time, priority, and finally the notes column. And in the table next to it, you can specify the people involved for each photo description. You can list the first person here, followed by others in the next columns. The drop-down options for these columns include bride, groom, and any guests marked as attending on your guest list. You can also filter the columns. For example, in the priority column, I can filter the list to show only must-have shots, helping you easily prioritize your photo checklist. Now, I will reset the filter back to normal. Click the filter icon, select all, and click OK. Up here, you can see a summary of your list, which displays the total counts for each photo priority level. Alright, now let's move on to the Music Playlist tab. The table at the top displays your selected music vendors, including their name, email, and contact details, making it easy for you to get in touch with them. This table is fully automated. In the list table below, we have columns for ad, song title, artist, genre, moment, requested by, and other details for each song. In the genre column, the drop-down menu automatically pulls the music genres you listed in the Setup tab earlier. You can also filter any of these columns. For example, in the genre column, or if I filter the ad column to show only false. Now, if we look at the summary at the top, you can see that the total songs is 45 and songs added is 40. If I check one more box, the songs added count will automatically increase to 41. I will now reset this back to the original settings. And right over here, you can see a music chart representing each of your song genres. Alright, now let's move on to the Registry Planning tab. This table is where you can fill in your registry planning details. It includes columns for ad, registry item, and category, with the category drop-down options pulled directly from the list you created in the Setup tab. In the next columns, we have priority, which includes options like must-have, nice-to-have, and dream item, followed by the store/website, estimated price, link, and notes columns. And just like on the other tabs, you can filter any of these columns as well. Up here, you can see the summary showing the total items and total items added. If I check one more item, the items added count will automatically increase by 1. Alright, now let's move on to the Dashboard tab. Everything on this tab is fully automated and powered by formulas, so please do not edit or delete anything here to avoid breaking the spreadsheet. This is the only cell where you can add your photo. If you are using a photo from the internet, simply copy the image address and press Ctrl+Shift+V next to image link. Alternatively, you can upload your own photo by going to the top menu, clicking Insert, selecting Image, and choosing Insert Image in Cell. Next to it, there is a mini calendar for your wedding day that displays the month and year, with your wedding date automatically highlighted. Below this mini calendar, you will find a countdown showing the number of days left until your big day. And right over here is your wedding budget summary, displaying your total budget and actual spending. Below that, the charts show your remaining balance, representing both your left to budget and left to spend amounts. Over here is the Spending Over Time chart from your Wedding Budget tab, and next to it is the Payment Progress by Vendor chart. In this table, you can see the Guest of Summary, while right beside it is the overall summary of your entire guest list. There is also a chart for your guest tags right here. Here, you have the Spending Overview chart, and below that is the Task Phase chart to help you track your progress from the Task Tracker tab. Next to that, you'll find the Upcoming Deadlines section, which compiles tasks from both your task tracker and the other deadlines list. And right over here is the Upcoming Payments table, which pulls its data directly from your wedding budget. If you want to update or edit any of your tasks, simply click on the task name. Once the pop-up link appears, click it, and you'll be taken directly to that task in the task tracker. This will automatically navigate you to the Task Tracker tab and jump to that specific tasks row. Now let's go back to the dashboard. If you want to update an upcoming payment, for example, the hair and makeup category, simply click on it click the pop-up link, and it will automatically take you to that exact payment row in the Wedding Budget tab. All right, now let's move on to the Honeymoon Budget tab. First, you can set your overall honeymoon budget right here. For example, it is currently set to $4,000. If I change this to $4,500, you will see that both Left to Budget and Left to Spend update automatically. Okay, I'll change this back to $4,000. Next, let's look at the Budget Summary table. Here, we have the Category column, where you can list categories like transport, accommodation, and so on. Next to it is the column where you can set your budget, and right beside that are the Actual and Difference columns. Please remember not to edit or delete anything in these two columns, as they contain formulas. And in this column right here, you can choose from the drop-down menu to display either Difference or Progress, depending on whether you want to track your progress percentage or view the remaining balance. Now, let's move on to the Currency Calculator section. As you can see, we have USD and Euro as the currency symbols here. If your honeymoon destination uses a different currency, like British pounds, you can change the destination symbol to GBP and enter the exchange rate, for example, 0.74. For the converter option, you can choose USD to GBP or vice versa. For this example, let's select USD to GBP. You can see below that 1,500 US dollars converts to 1,110 pounds sterling. If I change the input to 1,000 US dollars, the converted amount automatically updates to 740 pounds sterling. And you can also calculate it the other way around, from GBP to USD. As you can see, 1,000 pounds sterling converts to 1,351 US dollars. Now let's move to the Transaction Tracker section. In this column, I will enter the date, for example, August 1st, and set the amount to 700. For the category, I will select Transport. Once entered, the Actual and Difference values for the transport category in the summary table will update automatically. And for the description, I'll type round-trip airline tickets as an example. Now let's move over to the Booking table on this side, which features rows for name, phone number, and so on. Right next to it, you'll find the Travel Arrangements table. And looking at the top left section, you can see your spending progress. As you can see, the Left to Spend is currently 95, which matches the information shown here. You can also switch the Progress view to Budget Overview. Here, you can see that our budget progress has successfully reached the total budget we set up at the beginning. I'll change this back to Spending. And right over here, we have a chart for your budget summary that clearly compares your budgeted amounts against your actual spending. And next to that is the Spending Over Time chart, where you can easily see the total amount you spent on any specific date. All right, let's move on to the Honeymoon Itinerary table. This section is where you can plan your honeymoon schedule, featuring columns for date, time, location, and details. And here is the Honeymoon Checklist table to help you prepare everything you need for your trip. It includes columns for Done, Task, Assigned to, which features the first names of the bride and groom, and a Due Date column. And right above these columns, you can see the overall progress bar for your honeymoon checklist. All right, now let's move on to the Engagement tab. This tab works almost the same way as the Honeymoon Budget tab, where you start by setting up your overall budget and tracking your Left to Budget and Left to Spend. However, this tab also includes Setup Overview section for your engagement details, where you can enter the date, time, venue, and theme. The Budget Summary table functions exactly like the one in the Honeymoon Budget tab we looked at earlier. You can also switch this column to display either Progress or Difference. The Transaction Tracker here also works the exact same way as in the Honeymoon Budget tab. What's new on this tab is the Guest List table, which includes columns for guest name, guest of, and RSVP status. And right here is the RSVP summary for your guests. For example, if I check the box for one guest in the RSVP column, the confirmed guests count will automatically update to 23 out of 25. Below this section, you can also see the countdown of days left until your engagement event. Over here, we have a table for venue and vendor info, followed by a theme and decor planning table below it. And right beneath that, you will find the itinerary table to organize the schedule for your engagement day. All right, now let's move on to the Bachelorette tab. This tab is very similar to the engagement tab we just looked at. It includes the total budget section, a budget summary table, and a guest list table. Additionally, you will find tables for booking and travel arrangements here. Here, you can also view your confirmed guests count, which is automatically calculated from the RSVP column in your guest list table. And up here, you will find the spending overview chart and the category budget chart shown right next to it. All right, now let's move on to the Bridal Shower Planner tab. Here, you can set your overall budget with the left to budget and left to spend metrics displayed right below it. This tab also features a setup overview section just like the previous ones, with the budget summary table next to it and the transaction tracker below it. What's new on this tab is the guest and gift tracker table, which includes columns for RSVP, guest name, gift item, estimated price, and thank you. The RSVP column is linked to the confirmed guests summary above. For example, if I check the RSVP box for Olivia Nelson, you can see the confirmed guests count update automatically. And right over here is the total gifts summary, which automatically calculates the count based on the gift item column. For example, if I delete one of the gifts in this column, you'll see that the total gifts count decreases by 1. I will now restore it back to how it was. Next to that is the estimated price column, followed by the thank you column to track your thank you notes. Up here, you can see the progress bar for the thank you notes sent. If I check off a box in the thank you column, the progress bar will automatically update. All right, let's scroll up. In this Games and Activities table, we have columns for the game/activity name, its duration, who it is assigned to, and right next to that, any other details. And that brings us to the end of our complete wedding planner walkthrough. Thank you so much for staying with me until the very end. If you are ready to make your wedding planning journey smooth, organized, and stress-free, you can find the link to get this template in the description box below. It is designed to save you time and keep everything in one place, so you can focus on enjoying your special journey. If you found this tutorial helpful and want to see more tools to keep your life beautifully organized, please support our channel by hitting that subscribe button. It truly means the world to us. Wishing you the absolute best as you plan your dream wedding. Thank you again for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.